This insanely great sounding home audio system starts with the Powernode from Bluesound. This is the third generation of the Powernode, and there's a certain reason why they have up to the third generation now, because it has been selling like hotcakes. This retails for just under $1,000. Now you can get it for about $950. And this is a streamer, DAC, preamplifier, and amplifier. What that means is that all you require is a set of speaker cables and a set of speakers. And talking about set of speakers, I was using the Polk R200. Now I've set up many different speakers in this exact same setup to find out which one would be the best pairing with the Powernode. Now regardless of price point, and of course more expensive speakers, more ridiculous offerings did sound better in this current setup. However, these really hit the spot in the current price category of under $1,000. Let me say, under $1,000, or even dare I say under $2,000, this speaker really rocks with the Powernode. This, in fact, is only $750. And in fact, I did a full video on this speaker particularly, so I'll link it in the description below if you want to check out how it sounds, how it performs, etc, etc. But let me just tell you that for $750, this speaker is insane. In fact, amongst the reviewers of this community, we've been all talking about how insane this new Reserve series from Polk is. Now, if $750 sounds too much for you to cash out all at once, Crushfield, I just looked it up, has a 3 set of payment option where you just pay without any interest 3 different set of payments. And that should help you out if you really want this setup. And why wouldn't you want this setup? This setup is absolutely insane for the money. Now I set up a mock system here in my non-treated room. Now it has some treatments, but it's mostly very minimalistic. It's just a Powernode with the Polk speakers on an IKEA Calyx stand. Nothing crazy. But the only thing that it's actually crazy about this setup is the crazy performance that it delivers. Now, even in an untreated room like this that is somewhat in normal living condition, it performs amazing in both bass, mid, and highs. It doesn't bring out the best in the R200, let me make that very clear, but the new Powernode has now power rating of 80 watts per channel, whereas before they only had 60 watts per channel. Now that 20 watts doesn't seem like much, but if you put it into perspective, now that 20 watts increase in power is something here, because now I believe that it makes the cutoff line, just a cutoff line to drive these Polk R200s to a sufficient level. Whereas with the previous Bluesound Powernode with only 60 watts power, I would say that it needs a little bit more power to drive the R200s. So the new Powernode is not only more convenient, but more powerful. Now I did again a full video for Soundstage Take 2 series, and I'll link to it as soon as it goes live. It will be live in the next few days, and I'll link it in the description below for you to check out the full review of the Powernode. But let me just tell you that you don't need a single thing with these cables. That means that you don't even need an Ethernet cable to connect it to the streaming capability. It is fully Wi-Fi, which means that it has Tidal Connect, Spotify Connect, whatever you require. It literally has a whole plethora of connections and apps for you to use to stream music without any cables whatsoever. And I do have to say that in the previous generation of the Powernode and the Node 2i streamer, which was also very popular, it did face some problems connecting to the Wi-Fi in the previous generation. But now with this current generation, I've had it for several months now. I've been testing it and it works absolutely flawlessly. And the app that comes with it is absolutely amazing. The BlueOS or BlueOS app, whatever you want to call it, is one of the best apps that comes with a streamer, period. I would say it's even better than the Inuus app that I use in my main setup. And it's just the ease of use that is so great on this software. Now, if you have a different opinion about the BlueOS app or the BlueOS app, then let me know what you think in the comment below. But from my experience, it has never once had a hiccup. It is just so convenient to use, and it has auto catalogs, all of it that you possibly need, to the point where you just don't really feel like you even need Rune, because it does similar things, which again talks value here because you're saving a lot of money on software. And the Powernode has a secret weapon, and that is the HDMI eARC. Now this conveniently allows you to connect it to your TV. So whether you're Netflixing, is that a word now? Or watching YouTube or whatever it is that you do on your TV, then it will play through the Bluesound Powernode to your speakers. And if you want a little bit more bass and rumble for your home theater watching Godzilla or whatever you watch, then you may want to add a subwoofer. And most units don't have this, and it's just frustrating to me because this is something that all integrated amplifiers should have. The Powernode has the sub out. And this is extremely convenient because now you can add a subwoofer and have a 2.1 setup instead of relying on just two of your speakers to do the low bass function, which, let's admit it, the R200 is phenomenal in the bass region, but when it comes to the sub frequencies, it doesn't rumble as hard, especially for home theater purposes. And let me tell you, I watched Godzilla last night again with these speakers, and you have to have a subwoofer. It just rocks the cake in a different way. And if you're wondering what kind of subwoofers I would recommend with these speakers, I'll link to some of the amazing subwoofer suggestions in the link description below, but that is outside the scope of this video. So back to the video. Now we have already established how convenient, user-friendly it is and easy to integrate into your home theater or your 2.1 or your 2-channel setup. However, the convenience doesn't really take much away from the sound quality, as this is a 3rd generation. Now, I do have to admit that in the previous generation, I heard some grain, I heard some, not so good things, which, at the sacrifice of convenience, I was happy to trade off. Well, with this new Powernode, the 3rd generation, the Class D amplifier in this is just absolutely insane. Now, don't get me wrong, it is not absolutely insane like it's going to kill a $1,000 dedicated integrated amplifier like the Irida VX, which again, sounds better with these speakers. However, the overall performance is quite acceptable, and what people usually say, good enough. The bass is tight and it rumbles hard. At no point do I feel like there is a sacrifice in the bass quality or the bass amount. It doesn't feel like it's lackluster in terms of its driving capability of the R200s or is losing control at any point. In fact, I played some very demanding tracks like the ones I put up here, and it just played phenomenally well. At no point did it chuff or crack or distort in any way or fashion, which really shows me that the Powernode was able to deliver all the power the R200 requires, and the R200 again is just a phenomenal speaker. And the mid-range and high frequency is where it really takes the cake. The mid-range tone is excellent and it really conveys what the R200 is all about. It has authority and meat to the sound. It has a sense of meatiness to it. So it is warm, meaty, it has a lot of gut to the sound. However, one thing that is the trade-off here is clarity. And for some of you avid audiophiles, you will quickly note the fact that the mid-range is not as clear as it is when used with a higher end amplifier on the R200, which again, for the right amount of money, you can get with the R200. These R200s scale extremely well. I've set up the Polk R200 in a more audiophile setup. In my main rig, it costs a lot more than what we have here. Minimalistic is not the word I would use. And it sounds much, much better. But for the money, the R200's mid-range is pleasant, and even more so pleasant than with a high-end amplifier, because clarity is sometimes not all we look for. In terms of musicality, the mid-range was just absolutely lush, beautiful, meaty, and just enough for me to just drop everything and listen to this setup for the rest of the day. Now, however, in terms of the high frequency, that clarity is a little bit more desired. The R200 I know is a speaker that can be much more clear sounding in the high frequency and more sparkle, but that doesn't really happen with the Powernode. The Powernode is known to have more bass and mid-range emphasis instead of focusing on the high frequency. It means that you can crank up these speakers really, really loud and you will not get ear fatigue whatsoever. However, if you are someone that likes brightness and detail retrieval and all about that nuance, then the R200 setup with the Powernode may not do it for you, since the high frequency is not as clear or crisp or bright to your liking. Soundstage, meaning how wide it sounds, is incredible even in an untreated room like this. The R200 fills this room no problem, and it plays loud and with authority. It fills the room and it sound stages in a way that is incredible for any bookshelf speaker. And most bookshelf speakers are good with sound staging, but the sound staging I'm getting with the R200 and the Powernode is really impressive, especially considering that all the components are packed into this one little box here that is powering this inexpensive speaker. This is a type of a setup that I would have loved to have just a few years back. Now it's available. And I can promise you that you will not be disappointed regardless of where you are in your journey. It is just that good in terms of sound staging. Now, in terms of imaging, as long as you have these set up symmetrically, meaning the left and the right speaker has the same distance away from the wall behind it, and if possible to the sides as well, then you get a pinpoint imaging right down the middle. Which means that when you play music or a dialogue, you hear the singer's voice right down between the center of your speakers instead of having more to the left or to the right. Just right down the center, pinpoint. And in terms of this system's ability to image down the center, it does phenomenally well even compared to a high-end system. I got everything just right down the center, no problem. Now, in terms of the depth of the soundstage, is something to be a little bit more desired because it is a little bit closer to the wall behind it, and I did that on purpose to mimic a normal living condition where you have to have the speakers closer to the wall instead of having the speakers out forward. However, one thing that I found is that the depth was more than I expected. The imaging, the center imaging is coming from behind the speakers, almost like if it's behind this wall right here. And that's quite impressive considering that these speakers are almost really no distance away from the wall behind it. And for you critics out there, you're already thinking, hell man, he has it too close to the wall. It's going to be boomy bass. But let me tell you, the port technology on this speaker is really something to be desired. Having it even close to the wall like this, I was not getting much boomy bass. Of course, if I put it really close to the wall, then I start getting boomy bass. But I would say just less than an inch away from the wall, and I was just satisfactory. As long as I didn't crank up the volume to ridiculous levels, which really nobody would, other than crazy young punks like me, it really did control the bass quite well, and it didn't chuff or puff or boomy or muddy up the sound. Now, really nitpicking here at this point, but now the separation of instruments and being able to detect and see where the actual singers are in the soundstage. So for example, if a guitar is playing to the left and a singer on the right, being able to pinpoint exactly where those guys are is a little bit compromised on the speaker setup because of the way it's set up in this room, and also because of the limitations with the Powernode as well as the R200 in this case. Now the R200 is far better in this way in terms of technicality when it comes to an audiophile setup. So there you have it. This system is incredible for just under $2,000. In fact, it is about $1,700 total, leaving you about $300 for the cables. And if you want cable suggestions, I personally use Blue Jean cables for this setup right here. And even then, you may have a little bit left over for the Calyx stand as well. So there you have it. If this video was helpful to you, please leave a like on this video. It does help me out tremendously, and it helps me make more videos like this for you so that you can make a more informed decision. So that's pretty much it, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.